Hello everyone, welcome to our different online seminar group. First, keep your phones off. Then, if you have any questions, you can ask our speaker during his presentation. I have great pleasure of welcoming to Professor Eddy Cardinaels. Eddy is a professor of accounting at Tilburg University. His work focused on experimental and archival research in accounting. His work has been published into ranking journals such as the Accounting Review, Journal of Accounting Research, Accounting Organization and Society, Journal of Review of Accounting Studies, and healthcare management journals such as Health Policy. He serves as editor for the Accounting Horizon and an editorial board member for the journals Contemporary Accounting Research and Auditing, a journal of practice and theory. Now we will start our seminar with the Professor Eddy.
Many thanks, Mohammed, for inviting me for this seminar. The paper that I'm going to present today is a paper about employee giving programs. Often firms introduce these giving programs and rank people in these giving programs, and that's a little bit what the paper is about. I have this paper together with Shinan Ruan, who is also here today from the Free University in Amsterdam. And then Wakjiang Yin, who is at NTU, he is, I think, not joining today. So what is the paper about? Well, many companies engage their employees in corporate giving programs, and often firms even introduce challenges to that, like we are a team in an organization, and with a team, individuals can donate money to a certain charity. And based on that, we might rank people in these programs. So many companies do this. It's often also in apps. Recently, we are talking with a company, Skone, that actually shows emissions of their employees in an app, and they also introduce challenges. What we think is unique about giving programs is that people can learn something about themselves, and that's what we are after in this experiment. Many companies engage these employees in these corporate giving programs. What benefit do you realize with doing so? Well, firms often state several reasons for doing this. They say, well, we can create a corporate identity. As Walmart, we do good for society. That helps also to retain our employees. You create an identity, you create a good brand image, but also engaging your employees. One reason that is often stated as well is that by doing well for society, people realize maybe that there is also some ethical component to it, and doing well might also translate into subsequent ethics within the organization. And if you look at FrontStream notes indeed that as employees engage in these altruistic endeavors, they start to develop a personal identity that might lead to more ethical decision making, and that might be beneficial for companies too. So by having employees participating in these programs, you don't only realize a good brand image, but you might also make employees more ethical within the firm, which can have several benefits for your organization. A lot of companies are doing this. Here are some examples: General Electric, Microsoft, PepsiCo. They do engage in their employees in these employee giving programs where people can donate money to charity, to the Red Cross. Or sometimes they also volunteer with time. You do something good for society, help to distribute food packages within a community. For example, Walmart does this. So these kind of things happen within organizations. What we are looking at is the following research question: do design features of this corporate giving program fosters this learning about this ethics? So many firms say like it's important for stimulating ethics. When do you realize these ethical benefits of engaging your employees into an employee giving program? We think that rankings are crucial. So you can provide relative information on contributions of people within these corporate giving programs. These apps which I refer to often have leaderboards about employees donating a lot, employees donating a less. And so, for example, here in the session, Shinan might be ranked first, Mohammed might be ranked second, and I ranked third in employee giving. And that's also what happens in certain companies. For example, Bank of America, they have a money giving program and they rank people on their donations, and these billboards are often presented within the firm. Within the apps that I was referring to, often also challenges are executed to raise money for a charity. And the challenges actually list people, which one participated most in the challenge. That could be monetary donations. It could also be time donations. For example, in a cancer run here in the city that I participate in, then people are ranked on a leaderboard and how many kilometers they walk for the Cancer Society. So it happens, these leaderboards, we think that this ranking information within these corporate giving programs can be helpful to learn where one stands in terms of their ethical concept. And second, if you learn where you stand, if I'm the biggest contributor, probably I'm the more ethical guy. Does that then translate into these subsequent ethical decision-making? Like I said in my first sheet, engaging people in these programs might stimulate ethics later on. That's also what we are after in our experiments. So first of all, when do people learn something about their ethical concept? And second, does this translate into future ethical behavior of these employees? These apps are very popular in organizations, and like I say, leaderboards are quite common. The RPI information, like you see here with the Bank of America, but 3M also has a program where you can nominate the best volunteer in your organization, and often it is publicly disclosed. Not always, and that's also the variation that we are going to explore. What happens if you introduce RPI versus no RPI on these donations in these corporate giving programs? Can people learn something about their ethical self-concept? What we actually argue is that the informative of RPI regarding an employee self-concept plays a central role to achieve this positive spillover. So if you really have to have RPI being informative about the ethical concept of employees, if it's not giving the right information and it's more difficult to assess where you stand in terms of your self-concept, then we don't expect a spillover from what you do in the donation to subsequent ethical behavior. And that's also what we argue in this paper. The informativeness of the RPI information in these corporate donation programs really depends on the type of giving program. In some companies, people donate from their salary. In other companies, people donate their time. For example, you can run for a certain cancer society, then probably you donate time. You can also donate from your salary. That also happens in Tilburg with our Christmas bonus. We can actually buy something from the Christmas bonus, or we can donate part of the Christmas bonus to a charitable organization. What we argue is that in this paper, and it's a preview of the theory a little bit, is that once you start to donate your time, it's easier to give away time. And because it's easy to give away time, if you learn that you're the first in the ranking or the second, it doesn't tell you much, because a lot of people might be doing a lot for charity because it's easy to adjust time. And maybe some people adjust their donations in terms of time to look good in the ranking. And so you might learn less about your ethical self-concept, because with donating time, there are a lot of competing incentives going on. People easily adjust their time. easily justify additional time spending and probably put a lot on the table to do well in the ranking. Part of our theory, when we compare salary, in salary, we would say like, yeah, money, that's more difficult to adjust because people have a more concrete idea of what it means to sacrifice money for society. If I'm giving if I receive an endowment of €5, I might be very carefully thinking about what should I do with that money in the experiment. If I give away all to the corporate to the good cause, then I don't have anything left. So I'm very careful in adjusting my money. And if I then learn where I stand in the ranking, if I, for example, learn that I'm now the first, that might tell more about my self-concept, because for everybody, it's more difficult to give away money. And if I learn that I'm the first in the ranking, then maybe I learn something about myself that I might be more ethical relative to the others. That is more difficult in time, where people easily adjust their time. And so it might be more difficult to learn from a ranking on where you stand in terms of your self-concept. By the way, I'm also happy to take questions during the presentation. So if you have questions, please do not hesitate to unmute your microphone. That's best, I think, because I don't keep track of raising hands or what's in the chat. So what?
Sorry, Eddie.
Yeah.
Hi, can I ask a question
Yeah.
about the type of giving? Do you think the type of giving here? I know you sort of extract the setting from the practice where like employees are giving either time or giving money,
Yeah.
but do you think it will generalize to about like giving, whether the giving is on the input side, whether you are ranking an input or whether you are ranking an output? Because to me, like I know like money is not that. To me, like money is more like the output of the giving, whereas time invested is more like an input. So potentially there is more noise involved in the input if you're ranking that. So
yeah, I think that's what the next step is of the paper. I think to try to generalize a little bit more. Indeed, we get this from practice. Some people donate money. In other companies, it's a ranking based on time. But your remark on input or output, yeah, that makes sense too. And yeah, what we are looking at maybe in the next experiment is that in both cases you donate money.
yeah.
But in one case, the ranking is very informative, and in another case, you can donate money in a in an account for the company or in a private account. And then what's in the public account might be less informative. So we are indeed thinking of generalizing more, not only to money versus time, but yeah, input, output could also be. But I don't understand your input argument that it might be noisier. Can you explain?
So what I'm saying is I think alternatively we can understand it as a comparability story where because we don't know, we only know like you spend 1 hour, I spend 1 hour, but we don't know whether during that 1 hour how much like actual impact we are having. So I think to a certain degree it doesn't capture the direct effect, the immediate effect. So it's probably noisier. And related to your topic, I think there is another, there's a paper, I think you can find it on SSRN, like by Presley et al. It's I think they did an experiment on the effect of leaderboard in the peer-to-peer recognition. So instead of looking at employees giving to the society, they were looking at employees giving to other employees. So I hope that you will find that relevant.
I will look into that paper, but indeed we are trying to more relate to this concept of the informative principle, and the informative principle can be realized in different ways. Now we do money versus time, input maybe versus output, or maybe we keep the donation constant. It's always salary, but in one condition, you can learn more from the ranking
Yes.
relative to another money condition where it's more difficult to learn from the ranking. And I think the more difficult one is with the two accounts, where people can put money in a company account that is publicly disclosed, or in a private channel that will not be publicly disclosed. But then if you see the disclosure, it tells less than the disclosure in our experiment, where it's one account. And then so people don't have to doubt, well, where do people put their money? So we try to sell it more into that informative idea in the future. But
Okay.
thanks for the comment, and I will look into that paper of Presley as well.
Thank you for your clarification.
Yeah, what do we do actually? Here it's really like we look at the spillover, like what I said. So we have people performing a donation task, people putting money in a corporate giving program. So employees can donate in the experiment from their $5, $1 to a foster kids charity, $2, $3, $4, $5. That's a donation task. Or they can write 2-minute encouragement letters, which they then they donate time. The question is then, if you help more children in this donation, would that lead to more subsequent ethical decision making in the future? And that's also what we study. So people donate money or donate their time. And then in the next step, we look at a reporting decision where people have the opportunity to misreport. Now, when does more donation does that lead to more subsequent ethical decision making? And here we say, well, ranking information kicks in. If you receive ranking information and you learn where you stand relative to others in the population, then probably if you donate more and you realize that you are the winner in the ranking, then probably you realize I'm the ethical person here in the room. Because I learned this, I will probably be more ethical in subsequent decision makings. If I don't receive a ranking, yeah, I might donate a lot, but I still don't know what others are doing. And so for me, it's maybe difficult to learn about where I stand in terms of ethics. And that doesn't translate into subsequent ethics. So this ranking information might be crucial for me to learn something about where I stand in terms of ethics. Prior research indeed confirms that where you stand in terms of ethics, that's quite a vague concept, and people need information about that to realize like how ethical am I, and then ranking information can help. What we do also argue is that this ranking information is particularly beneficial when you donate money, but we don't expect the same of the ranking when people donate their time, because of the reason that I just explained already. Time is easy to adjust. And if you realize that you are the winner in a contest, yeah, it might not mean much because everybody put a lot of time in the contest. Whereas with money, you're more careful in that spending. And so being the winner might lead to sort of updating of the self-concept. That's a
Eddy?
little bit, yeah.
Yeah, hi, Eddy, Anil here.
Yeah.
Can I ask you something? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I was wondering is, with respect to this time donation, what might be helpful here is this time during the regular hours of the employee or outside the working hours? I think in practice, what happens often is these kind of programs are organized on weekends. So what happens is there is a trade-off between leisure time and donation. And I think this aspect will also be good to clarify in the paper. So what you're basically doing here is money versus time, which is equivalent, because then they are comparing whether to give away time which could be productively used in their during the for something productive. Or it could be also that this time is outside the regular time of work. Then the trade-off is a little different. So I think this aspect, discussing this a little bit in the paper might be good for helping to understand the trade-off between time and money.
Yeah, here in the experiment, it's operationalized as within the experiment that people can actually leave earlier if they don't write messages. If they write messages, they sit a little bit longer. It might be the trade-off between leisure and working. They don't have a productive activity in the experiment prior to the donation task. I need to think about it, but indeed it might be helpful to put that in the paper. To what context does this generalize? It's not within their regular working hours, maybe like the way, in our experiment, it's a trade-off between going home early and have leisure or staying a little bit longer in the experiment. I will need to think about it, whether it generalizes also to the context where people sacrifice from their productive work.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Hi, Eddie.
Hello.
I turned my camera on by dropping my child off at school, so I'm in the car. But I had a quick question that maybe you could help me with. So with this setting, it seems like there's a form of perhaps moral licensing that also could play in here. And I know some of that literature, but is there any evidence that if you stay within the same domain, licensing has a differential effect? So for example, your reporting task, the benefit is monetary. So if the licensing was also monetary, is that going to have a differential effect than a time-based licensing within your dependent variable being money-based? Just wondering what you could maybe speak to that. And I don't think that actually matters for your theory per se, but maybe it's just a differential lens to think about it.
Yeah, it's a good question, because we do see you have moral consistency as well, moral licensing. And what we see is that in the time condition, once people donate a lot, that gives them sort of an opportunity to misreport. We do see some evidence of that licensing. And it seems that with the money condition, you see more moral consistency seems to be going on. And I didn't think it in this way, indeed, but indeed the donation task and the reporting task is money, which is maybe a necessary thing for this consistency to happen, because in the time versus, and then you report on money, you might maybe have more opportunities to rationalize that, okay, yeah, I did very good in terms of time. But you might not connect it to the second decision. So I need to look into that. We do see more licensing going on in the time condition. But the problem with your alternative theory is, I think we don't have enough PEQ material to probably think about that angle. But I will think about it when rewriting the paper.
No, thanks. That's to have thought about some. Thanks, Eddie.
Yeah, we do see some of these differences. Money seems to lead to more consistency. But yeah, it doesn't explain the RPI effect. The RPI effect, the learning kind of ID from RPI. There I need to think about it more. Okay, if there are no questions, then I go further. So what are the contributions, I think?
Sorry, Eddie.
Okay.
I just want to jump in for another
No, that's fine. That's fine.
question. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I think about the practice example you just gave, I think the ranking information can also hint employees, say that there is a ethical, like there is a norm within the organization to be ethical. So maybe that's something that can further. I'm not sure whether like you have sort of like capturing that in your experiment, but certainly in the external, as for the external validity, it's something that may help you further argue the effectiveness of the ranking.
Yeah, we do see that the ranking is more effective for people. Yeah, I will show that later on in the paper, that it's more effective for people that have higher moral standards.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Because they are interested in learning about where they stand in terms of their ethical scale.
Oh.
Whereas we do that based on the Machiavellist and these kind of, but people scoring low on Machiavellism have a higher moral standard, and they react stronger to the RPI information in the money condition. So
okay, thank you. Yeah, so I'll look forward to like your later slides.
yeah. Yeah, the contributions, I think what I like about this paper is actually that there is a new element in this RPI information. So we always rank people on output and RPI, and that leads to more output and stuff like that. But nobody looked at actually ranking people on a social dimension. And that actually is new, I think, in this paper. And what is the benefit of doing so? If you rank people on a social dimension, people might learn something different about themselves. Where do they stand in terms of their self-concept? And that's actually triggered by the ranking based on contributions. Organizations often use such programs, but you have to be careful because you really have to set them up. Like one conclusion, what we could say with time versus money. If you do this in money, then people indeed learn something. But if you do this in time, yeah, then people are less likely to learn. And even, like I will show you later on in some of the results, if you do it in time, it might even backfire because people start to lie more once they donate a lot. So you have these apps that actually rank people in terms of leaderboards. Yeah, the effectiveness of these gamification tools, you have to be careful. It depends really on the way you set your system in an organization. If RPI information allows you to learn something about your self-concept, the more that is possible, then you likely reap the benefits. But if this ranking information is somehow blurred with competing motives, and people start to impress each other, then you don't get the benefits, and it might even slightly backfire. So management accounting information, and that's nice, a new angle, I think, can even foster sort of ethical learning. That's also something new. We call it ranking the stars. That's because I like the television show once on the Netherlands, Ranking the Stars. But here indeed, ranking the stars of people donating a lot, does that have benefits? Well, yes, but it depends on how you set up the program. What is the theory? A little bit of the theoretical background that we use for this paper is that RPI can facilitate learning about the self-concept. First of all, it needs to be relevant for one's self-concept. If you talk about ethics, then you have to engage people in a sort of exercise where there is an opportunity to learn something about your ethics relative to others. And that's the nice setting of the employee giving program. It's a social setting where people can learn, like doing well for society and what my colleagues are doing. It might be relevant to tell something to yourself about how good you are relative to others in this social setting. So we actually apply this RPI on a social setting, which would allow you to learn something about where do I stand in terms of my ethicality relative to others in the population. And it should be also feasible for learning. The information should provide a clear benchmark for one's self-concept. Because the ethical self-concept, if you look at prior literature, it's often vague and ambiguous. An individual can infer his or her social standing from the relative position of the donation, which then helps employees to understand better where they stand in terms of their hidden attributes. And that's also what we rely on. So first of all, we should have a setting where people can learn something about their social, about their ethics. Second, we know that it's vague, but if you rank people, then there is an opportunity that people at least learn that I might be a little bit better than my colleague. And so you can actually help to update people with this ambiguity in their self-concept by providing management accounting information, RPI information. What we want to argue is that if you donate a lot, that might then subsequently translate into subsequent ethical decision-making. For example, with RPI, people tend to update beliefs upon favorable feedback. If you learn that you're now the winner, if you donate a lot relative to others, you're likely to update your self-concept in a positive way, saying like, okay, I'm a more ethical person and I likely should follow through in my next decisions because I want to stick to who I am. And so I might actually be more ethical in subsequent decision-making. If I don't receive RPI, yeah, then maybe I donate a lot, but I still don't know where I am in terms of what others are doing. And it's for me difficult to understand where I stand. And so this updating happens less. It's also important to know that Eli and Raoul, 2011, they say that that updating is really asymmetric, meaning that if you do well, then people positively update their self-concept. But if you learn that you are the worst in the ranking, that often people then are not going to behave more bad. So it's a sort of asymmetry. If you learn that you are actually doing well in the ranking, you positively update your self-concept. If you learn that you're on the bottom, you probably won't change much, but you don't go and change to the negative. That's part of our theory. RPI will help maybe the spillover from donation engagement to subsequent ethics. But the key is that, well, in order to actually have this positive spillover effect of RPI to subsequent ethics, RPI should reflect the attribute of the donor, their self-concept. And here we actually say, well, the type of program matters. That is, money donation versus time donation will have different effects for this self-concept. What do I mean by that? Well, money donation, individuals have a concrete idea of the valuation of money. They concretely think about what it means, the cost to help others. And the more costly it becomes, the more likely that it actually leads to a sort of updating of your beliefs. If the action becomes costly, then that's what Gnisi say. The more costly it becomes, the more you learn something about yourself. And that might be important for the self-concept RPI, because you have a concrete idea of what it is to put money on the table. You're carefully deciding about how much to put on the table. If I put more, probably then maybe I learn something about my self-concept. If I learn in the ranking that I'm the winner relative to others. If you talk about time is more malleable, often research says. It's often less concrete. People have easily adjusted for other reasons. and people might start to think in terms of time, like, okay, let's put a lot of the on the table, then I look good in the ranking. And people might actually use their time not to, because to more show to others that they are doing well in the ranking, to impress, and maybe other motives come into play, which might hinder this ethical learning. If I now see the ranking and I learn that I'm the winner, but the second one is just below me, or I'm the second one, then I might easily justify, like, oh, the other one was maybe more better at impressing the others, wanted to put more money on the table, more time on the table. Whereas with money, it's more difficult to give away, and thus it says, yeah, more, once you put more on the table and you learn the ranking of what others do, then you learn more where you stand in terms of your ethics relative to the time donation. In the time donation, maybe everyone gives away a lot and the ranking becomes less informative. So where do we expect this? Yeah, I should go back. So we expect that donation, the more you donate, the more ethics you will get in subsequent decision making as a result of RPI. Yeah, we think that that happens in the money donation conditions. So if you have RPI relative to no RPI, then the effect of donation to subsequent ethics is reinforced as a result of RPI when you donate money. That reinforcing principle, the link between donation and subsequent ethics, reinforced by RPI information, we don't think that will happen in a time donation condition. So RPI is beneficial to learn for your self-concept. And because of that, you update your self-concept, might behave more ethical in subsequent decision makings. We expect that to happen as a result of RPI in the money condition, but we don't expect to see a similar spillover effect in the time condition. Questions here?
Sorry, Eddie, do you think there exists a point more? This is more of an external validity question, by the way. So I wonder if the message, if we give them this message to the corporations about like donating money and increase subsequent ethics, do you think there exists a line where if employees donate a certain amount of money and they see that they would want to sort of see corporation does their fair share as well? So to a certain degree, do you see this potentially impacts organizational justice perception at a certain point?
Okay. Do you want to say that once people realize that people have this program for stimulating ethics, that it might backfire and say like, you introduced this?
Yeah, so this is more like a potential, like a future study opportunity. I think it's where I think employees may expect like the management to do their they probably gonna expect the corporation to do their fair share as well. This comparison will probably like change their organizational justice perception and backfire at a certain point.
Yeah, that's not what is in this experiment yet, but it's an interesting question indeed. If you have to do a lot and the company doesn't do anything, then likely it won't lead to subsequent ethical decision making. So there might be a lot of boundary conditions indeed to realize that ethics. Also, the way you position, I think, if you introduce it like, look, we do this company program, and the idea is that you become more ethical. Yeah, that probably also won't work because it might not be a green message. So I think indeed a lot of follow-up studies are possible regarding this idea. Doing the fair share as a company as well is quite important, I think. to get the ethical component going, because otherwise indeed it backfires. And the way you communicate these programs, it should be authentic, I think. If it's not authentic,
Yes, yes.
you might also get this backfiring. So yeah, I need to think about it, but we can mention some of these ideas maybe in the conclusion, but all relevant points. Thanks. Yeah, then if there are no further questions, I'm going into the experiment already. So what do people do in the experiment? It's a 2x2 design, which you already discovered, I think. In one condition, people provide money to foster kids charity, and in another condition, people can decide how much children they want to help by encouragement letters. And we do have RPI present versus RPI absent. So it's a 2x2 between subject design, varying RPI, and varying the type of program. We did look at foster kids charity, where people can help kids that lost their parents. And so you can actually help them by donating money or by donating time. We took this charity because I think students in the lab could easily connect to it. It's something that is close to everyone's heart. And it also has this idea of like, if I do a lot, I might learn something about my ethical, because this is really like children in need. They lost their parents, and so you can do something good for these children. That's the donation engagement. Then people go into also a subsequent ethical task. Once they do the donation, they learn about the outcomes in one condition with RPI present versus the other condition. They don't learn too much what their colleagues did. Then they go to subsequent ethical decision task, and it's a die rolling task where you actually have to report what you have seen on the first die roll. And if you throw a 1, yeah, you would get less money than when you would throw a 6. But it's self-reported, meaning that yeah, there's no way to verify, and people can self-report. And it might mean you throw a 1, but you report a 6 because 6 earns you more money. And so we give people actually an incentive to misreport because we rely on self-reporting, and higher numbers lead to more money. So even though you might throw a low number, you might still misrepresent to receive more money, and say you reported, you throw a 6. Now, how does it work? Well, first of all, participants receive an endowment. And then in the money condition versus the time condition, for the endowment, in the money condition, they really sacrifice euros. In the time condition, for the same endowment, they actually sacrifice time. What we also nicely did in the experiment is that people have to, if they indicate how much they want to help, they always have to put their help in how many childs they want to help. So donate to 0 child, donate to 1 child, donate to 2 children. The same thing on the right-hand side, right to 1 child, right to 1 child, right to 2 children. So it's always expressed in the number of children you want to help. Then the donation task is executed. So you indicate donate to 2 children. Then people have to confirm that, yeah, it's okay to donate 2 euros to the charity. Or it's okay that once you donate time to write to 2 children, then the time writing starts and people start to write these messages, these encouragement messages for the children. So depending on the condition, you either sign off on your euros, or you start writing these encouragement letters. Then if RPI is present, people learn their rank after they finish the donation when RPI is present. And it's always appearing just before the reporting task. We only disclose the ranks 1, 2, and 3. So people learn whether they are first, second, and third. So they play in a cohort with 3 people, and they know that they are either first, second, or third. And then they go to the die hole video. It's a common die under a cup, but we modified it via videos. People see 3 videos, and people have to report the first dies. Why do we do 3 videos? Well, it sort of gives them a sort of rationalization. I might have seen a 6 on the second or the third. So maybe I report 6 for the first as well, even though it was a 1. I can justify that I've seen somewhere 6. And so it gives them a sort of rationalization process. But people were really instructed, like, look, report on what you have seen on the first die. And that's what you need to self-report. We do offer an incentive if you report a higher number than what you have seen on the first die. It gives you more money, but it's also unethical because you start to lie, and that's the idea of the ethical component in the second task. We had 243 participants in 12 sessions, design choices. All participants received an endowment and sacrificed something, either time or money. And the die under the cup, like I already said, was modified to allow for rationalization. You see 3 videos and you have to report the first roll. Everybody was clear about they'll need to report the first one. But if you see a 6 appearing in the second or third, you might rationalize, yeah, even though I saw 1 or a 2 in the first die roll, I might still report 6. An RPI is just before the reporting task. The variables that we look at is the donation engagement, amount of children that you help. The more children you help, the more you engage. And then we see whether that if there's a positive correlation between the donation and the ethics. So we expect that the more you donate, the less you misrepresent the first die. That's the relationship we are after. Thus, donation leads to subsequent ethics. The more you donate, the less likely that you will misreport in the second task. We control for die 1 in this regression analysis, because if you have thrown a low number like 1 and you have seen that in the first die 1, then there is a lot of room to misreport. When you have like 5 or 6, yeah, there 5, then you might stay with the 5 because there's not much to gain to go to 6. But if you only have 1, then there might be a lot to gain. And that's also what we do in the regression analysis. If we look at the summary statistics, the nice thing to look at here is the donation. If you see in the money condition, it's indeed more difficult to give away money because people are on average on 3 children helped. And with RPI present, it doesn't lead to much increases on what you do in terms of children that you help. But if you're in the time condition, we do see that on average, people are more likely to use the time writing. And if RPI present, then we go from 3.6 to 4.07. Then people start to indeed donate a lot more, sort of this impression management idea, like I put a lot of time on the table and that's easy to do. That seems to be the case already in the summary statistics. We do see that with RPI present, people are willing to put more time on the table. But with the money condition, we don't see that stark of an effect when RPI is present. It's not suddenly leading to a jump in extra donations. But we are not interested so much in the amount that firms collect. We are more interested in, well, if you donate more, does that then translate into subsequent ethics? And you cannot see that from the summary statistics. There we need to do a regression analysis. And that's actually also our first analysis, looking at what happens with donations. And that's actually the interesting effect here is in which I highlight with the red rectangle. So does donation leads to less misreporting? Well, yes. More donations lead to less misreporting once you introduce RPI, and this is the result for the time condition. So if people receive RPI, they do learn something about their ethical concept, and as a result of that, we see that donations, so more donations lead to less misreporting. That relationship materializes once RPI is present. That's actually this negative significant interaction, suggesting that donation to misreporting, does donation reduce misreporting? Yes, it's more likely to reduce misreporting once RPI is present. So that is our first hypothesis. Do people learn something from the RPI information in the money condition? The results here say yes, because they behave more ethical in subsequent decisions once RPI is provided. You can also see that.
Eddy.
Yeah.
Hey, Eddy.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's an interesting result, and it's a good test of your theory. If I'm a firm, though, do I care that RPI makes the relationship between donations and subsequent ethics stronger, or do I care about the fact that it appears that RPI's overarching effect would be a reduction in misreporting overall? So if we added the coefficients on RPI and the interaction, it's going to be even more negative. So as a firm, I care that by putting RPI in place, misreporting went down, not so much that the relationship between the amount donated and misreporting got stronger.
So can you repeat? So repeat the question again, Jeremy?
Yeah. So if I was the firm,
Yeah.
do I care that the relationship between donation amount and misreporting has gotten to be better? Or do I just care about the fact that the overall effect of RPI is there's less misreporting?
Yeah, yeah.
Because
I think yeah, the overall, in the
ahead.
end, the overall effect is, of course, I think the most important thing. We do.
Yeah, I would agree. Like if the RPI also increases donation, then the interaction becomes even more important.
Yeah.
But I think in your result pattern here, anyways, that you could tell me that even if it doesn't affect donation behavior, RPI appears to have a positive firm effect.
Yeah, we don't see, like in the summary statistics, if you look here, like misreporting goes down in the money condition, but it's not significantly going down. But indeed, the relationship becomes stronger, and we will see in the next sheet. Yeah, I will show it in a minute or two. That in particular, the ones that donate a lot, they really go down in misreporting. So there is a benefit, I think, on average for the people that donate a lot, for the people that donate little, and that might be half of your population, we don't see a big change. So on average, there might be not an effect, but at least for the people that care, there is a general effect of RPI.
Okay.
But it's not super strong. I agree. In our
yeah, I'm just looking at all the coefficients seem to be negative, so we would assume that if you added them up, they would still be an overall negative effect. But perhaps that's not true from the summaries.
Yeah, from the summaries, it's not true. You can easily see it. Misreporting goes down, but it's not significant. It's 17 versus a 13. But that's because half of the population that donates not so much don't change their behavior that much. It's really the ones that donate that start to change behavior. Maybe if we increase sample size, we might find it.
Right. Yeah. Well, and if this misreporting is dichotomous, but you said you can control for die 1. So if you did it as like, would it matter if you changed it as a percentage of misreporting? Like, were there people who reported 5 when they rolled a 1 instead of reporting 6 or something of that nature?
Yeah, we can look into that, but what we did see is that there's not so much people that misrepresent, so that some people miss, but it's not a big percentage. And once they do, they often go to 6 and not intermediate.
Yeah, that's
value.
usually how those die tasks play
Yeah, I
out.
know,
But
I know.
yeah, just curious. Thanks, Eddy.
Yeah. So here we do see that donation relative to subsequent ethics is reinforced by the ranking information. So that hypothesis is confirmed. If you look at the time donation, then some interesting patterns actually also start to arise. Like we don't find a significant interaction anymore. Donation times RPI is not significant. It's positive, but not significant. Suggesting that with donation leading to might increase misreporting. Well, we do see that happening when, and it's a weak effect. So I think, Jeremy, you said the moral licensing ID a couple of questions earlier. Well, we do see that a little bit arising over here. Once RPI is present, then the more you donate, the more you start to lie in the subsequent task. Whereas with money, in the RPI present condition, the more you donate, the less likely that you're going to misrepresent. That thing flips, but I have to do a cautionary note. It's significant at the 10% level, not at the. So we do see a little bit of that licensing going on. So here, donation leading to subsequent ethics. Unfortunately, under time, we don't see that arising. So depending on the type of program you actually set up, you get a spillover. You get a spillover in particular with money, not with time. What's nice to see here is a little bit what I wanted to refer to you, your question, Jeremy, is that indeed what you see is that the people that in the no RPI are at medium high levels, they start to misrepresent a lot. These people stop misrepresenting once they realize where they stand in terms of RPI. If they receive RPI information, they update their self-concept and misreporting goes down a lot for these people. In this subsample, I think RPI, we do find an effect in general of RPI information. The blue bars, you see that the low slightly go up. The blue bars are not significantly different, unfortunately. But you do see that that's why you see that the average effect, we do see RPI leading to a reduction in misreporting in the money condition. But that the misreduction is mainly driven by people that are medium and high. And for these people, the RPI information is really informative, because if I don't receive RPI and I do medium relative to high, I might still not update my self-concept. With RPI, that self-concept updating starts to happen. Nice thing on the right-hand side, no such updating takes place. And what's also interesting to see on the right-hand side is the time donation. If I am in a no RPI condition, regardless of the levels of where you are at low, medium, or high donation in the no RPI condition, this line is relatively flat. But if you look at, yeah, I can't show it, I think, but if you look at the right-hand side, there seems to be a upward sloping kind of thing going on. If you donate less, you misrepresent less, but if you donate more, you start to misrepresent more. This moral licensing ID starts to arise a little bit on the right-hand side, which we also find in this coefficient here with the time condition. But here, yeah, to Jeremy's question, I can say like the effect really is in these, in the money condition, in people that yeah, are on medium or high levels. They really update their self-concept, and as a result of RPI, they will become more honest. So for the firm, is there an effect? Well, yes, at least for half of the population that starts to donate a lot, they actually are helped with RPI. We also,
Eddy?
yeah.
Can you go back to your previous slide?
This one?
Yeah. Yes, yes. So I was just thinking, because when we talk about when we hear those news about like those employees who committed fraud within organizations, one thing that often stands out is that like it's always that a few employees, a very limited number of employees that is causing a significant damage to the organization. So I was just thinking, what's the organization's objective function in this case? Because if their objective function is we want an overall ethics increase, then we may want to use RPI, whereas if the objective function is to prevent those like minority group, like those very limited number of people who has like a high risk to commit fraud, then is the implication then to not use RPI? Because it can worsening the self-concept of those like small group of employees.
Yeah.
Cause like
you're referring to the blue bars probably here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. In our experiment, the difference between these blue are not significant, but you'd see there is a slight increase indeed.
Yeah.
It would be nice to replicate this in this experiment. Yeah, not many people misrepresented on the die roll. It's like around 20%, 25%. Certain ethical decisions are like maybe on a different nature, where more people might deviate, or because indeed if the people that want to lie and start to lie more with RPI, then we also have a problem. It didn't arise here in this experiment. You see a slight jump, but it's not significant.
Yeah. But I guess
there might be contexts where that actually is in. Yeah, I need to think about it. According to the theory of Eli and Raoult, they say it typically is asymmetric. So the ones that see that they are at the bottom of the ranking, they are not likely to then become really like very bad apples according to that theory. But there might be alternative theories going around.
Yeah. But at least maybe that points managers a direction to put in additional monitoring on those who rank low in this donation ranking. Maybe that will save companies some money in monitoring, like instead of monitoring all the employees, because now you know the donation ranking will shift employees' behavior. So now the companies can only focus on those lower ranking. So I don't know whether that helps.
Yeah, I need to think about it. It's hard to make an implication within this experiment, because if the blue bars were significant, I would make a conclusion that let's be careful, because that could be also backfiring going on for the ones that are actually not donating much. But that backfiring is not statistically confirmed, so I don't want to do any.
Yes. Makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. But it's something to think about indeed, maybe in a future research, and also depending, like maybe there's like if you do it repeat this with capital budgeting, and there may be more people that are sort of misreporting, to see what's going to happen. Results learning about the self-concept. We don't have at the moment a lot of evidence here, but we do have a strong question asking, did you learn something from the donation program that you were, I have to look at the question exactly, that you didn't know from yourself before? Something like that was the learning question, that you learned something new about yourself by engaging in that donation program. What we see is that if you donate more, people answer that learning question, yeah, that actually is reinforced by RPI information. That donating more leads to learning. Well, that only happens indeed when you receive RPI information. Then people start to say, yes, I learned something that I didn't know before on my personality. With the time donation, we don't see a reinforcing effect of RPI. So we do have some process evidence on learning. In the time condition, we also had a footnote, I think, where we said, like, do people receive pressure when RPI is present? In the time condition, yeah, we do see that perceived pressure increases donation amount when RPI is present. So there seems to be no pressure in the money condition, but once RPI is on the table in time condition, people think about other motives. So that is confirmed in one of our additional analysis, that people feel pressure once RPI is in place to put more time on the table. And so then they learn less well from the ranking. So is it learning that is going on? Well, we think yes, to a certain extent, learning is going on. We do see that updating happening really for people that donate medium and high, and they really update their beliefs. And we also, in the PEQ, see that coming back once RPI is being introduced in the money condition. Not much learning about the self-concept is going on in the time condition. We don't see that on the right-hand side over here, and also not in the PEQ evidence. The last thing that I want to show is that this is this morality scale. People that have score high on moral standards, they probably want to know where they stand in terms of ethics. If you don't have any moral standard, yeah, you don't care whether you win or lose. And that's also what we find, that the donation times RPI interaction leading to a reduction in misreporting. That happens typically for people that have a high moral standard. So confirming a little bit of our theory about learning, if you want to learn about your self-concept, what type of people want to learn about their self-concept? Well, people that care a little bit about their moral standard. If you don't care about it, well, you might not update your beliefs. And that's what I like about this test. This is more the moderation kind of idea. For which people does that learning matter? Well, for people that have a high standard. And here it's more like, yeah, what explains it? Yeah, we do think that learning is going on. So this is a little bit the results that I have. I don't know whether there are questions here on these results. If not, then I slowly arrive towards the conclusion, I think. Yeah, I like this paper a lot because ranking on a new social dimension can work. And this is something that people are doing in organizations more and more. You have people, organizations having these leaderboards on the iPhone, people competing in challenges, trying to raise money for the Red Cross, trying to raise enough time contribution for Cancer Society. So that happens a lot. And these rankings, leaderboards, not only work on corporate giving programs. Recently, like I talked with the app developer, they are also doing that with CO2 emissions of employees. So a contest of who is actually polluting the least as an employee, who is taking the bike a lot at work, who is doing a lot by foot. These rankings are also introduced to get sort of sustainable thinking going. We think there's a benefit of doing so. Ranking people in these corporate donation programs can lead to subsequent ethics, but in order to do so, the ranking should be informative about where you stand in terms of ethics. If people have other things in mind, like I want to impress and I put a lot of time on the table and I can impress my colleagues, then learning that you are the winner or learning that you are the second will lead for you less likely to update your own self-concept. It should be that the ranking is somehow informative or of where I stand in terms of ethics, and that happens more with the money condition. Another part of this, what I like about this study is that not many people have learned that management control systems from the perspective to learn something about ethical behavior about yourselves. And here we do have a management control system, a gamification element, a leaderboard, a relative performance information system that can help people to think about ethics and can help people to also behave more ethical in subsequent decision making. So management control systems can help to learn about ethical concepts, but the way you set them up is crucial, meaning that with money, you realize more of these benefits than when people give away their time. So that's what I had to say for today. I'm still happy to take questions.
Eddy?
Yeah.
Hi, Eddy. I have a question. So have you tried comparing across the ranks in terms of after receiving RPI versus not receiving RPI, whether their honest reporting, whether there's any difference? So what I'm trying to say here is when we consider RPI, given it's an RPI, for people's sound performance, would there be any stimulating effect once they receive their ranking? Meaning, for example, rank 2, knowing that their donation is rank number 2, and there's someone, donate more than them, would that agitate them to behave more honestly in the second round?
Yeah, we didn't do multiple rounds. So the nice thing is, of course, once people learn their ranking, you could repeat the tournament, and then that I can't say much about. The only thing analysis that comes close was the one that I showed you earlier. That's this one, where we see that the medium donators indeed become more honest. So the difference between the orange bars, I think they are also significant. I need to confirm with my co-author Sinan, but I think they are also significant. So, but yes, that's the only thing that I can say at this point. But it's interesting, your question, that once you learn that you're second, that might motivate you to do maybe more in the next tournament.
Yes. Yeah.
But okay, that I can't tell much with the existing experiment, but that's an interesting thought.
Hi, Eddy. I know I've asked lots of questions. I just have one last comment. Yeah. I think I'm still thinking about the blue box, and I think one way that you may be able to further build your argument is that because the learning is facilitated by the ranking, right? So those blue boxes employees, their learning can be potentially blocked by only showing the leaders of the ranking system. And I suspect that this is what managers do in practice. Like, they do not show ranks of all the employees, they only show the ranks of the top performing employees. So by doing that, you avoid those negative learnings of those low ranked employees.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, then we probably should set up an experiment with maybe 5, 6, because with 3 it's difficult to hide ranks. Because if you display 1 and 2, you know that if you're not displayed, you're third. But
I'm certainly not suggesting that you have to do a subsequent experiment, but I think it's
but it's a good implication. I think indeed a lot of companies if they do these leaderboards,
Yes.
they might only disclose the top 3.
Yeah, top 10, top 20 something.
Yeah, and blocking the ones that are really bad from engaging in
Yeah.
licensing behavior. Yeah, I need to think about it. Something to put in the conclusion, maybe, of the paper.
Yeah, but a great presentation. I really enjoyed your paper. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Nice to hear.
Thank you very much, dear Professor Eddy, for your contribution and your effort. It's really an excellent presentation and excellent paper. If anyone have any questions, here she can open your mic and ask your question. Is there another question? Thank you very much, dear Professor Eddy, for your contribution, and thank you everyone joining us today. And thank you very much for taking the time to present it to us today, dear Professor Eddy. It's been really appreciated. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, and thanks to everyone joining. And have a nice weekend, everyone.
Yeah, and I hope to see you soon in Egypt. You are very, very welcome.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, goodbye.
Mohammed, you have